The Gambino Mafia family, one of the most infamous and powerful of the five crime families in New York City, has left an indelible mark on American organized crime. Over the decades, the Gambinos have built an empire of illicit activity, wielding influence and power through violence, corruption, and a code of silence. We explore the history, infamous crimes, and fascinating details of this mafia dynasty. The Gambino family traces its roots back to the early 1900s, originating from the Sicilian mafia. The family emerged during a time of rapid immigration, when Italian crime syndicates established themselves in New York City. Originally known as the D'Aquila family, they gained notoriety under the leadership of Salvatore D'Aquila, one of the first mafia bosses in the United States. After a series of internal conflicts and reorganizations within the mafia during the Castellamarese War, 1929 to 1931, the family came under the control of Vincent Mangano. Mangano was one of the original bosses of the five families, as described by mob architect Charles Lucky Luciano. In 1951, Albert Anastasia, known as the Mad Hatter or Lord High Hangman, orchestrated the murder of Vincent Mangano and became the new boss. Anastasia was known for his brutality and his role in Murder Inc., a hitman syndicate. Albert Anastasia's reign came to an abrupt end in 1957 when he was murdered in a Manhattan barbershop. The mastermind behind the plot, Carlo Gambino, his underboss. Known for his cunning and low profile, Gambino consolidated power and established his family as one of the most dominant in organized crime. Under Carlo Gambino, the family expanded its operations into drug trafficking, loan sharking, gambling, construction racketeering, and labor union corruption. Gambino's ability to forge alliances and avoid public attention ensured a relatively long and prosperous reign, which lasted until his death in 1976. He personally selected his brother-in-law, Paul Castellano, as his successor, a decision that would later lead to internal conflict. Paul Castellano's tenure as boss was marked by controversy. Known for his preference for white-collar crime over traditional mob activity, Castellano alienated many family members. His opulent lifestyle, including a mansion nicknamed the White House on Staten Island, further fueled resentment. In the early 1980s, tensions between Castellano and the Agnello della Croce faction reached a fever pitch. When Della Croce died in 1985, Castellano did not attend the funeral, disrespecting members loyal to Della Croce. John Gotti, a rising star of the Gambino crime family and a protege of Della Croce, seized the opportunity. On December 16, 1985, Castellano and his underboss Thomas Bilotti were killed outside Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan. The assassination attempt was orchestrated by Gotti, who declared himself the new boss. John Gotti became a media sensation. Nicknamed the Dapper Don for his expensive suits and flamboyant style, and later the Teflon Don for his ability to escape conviction, Gotti represented a new era for the Gambino crime family. Under Gotti's leadership, the family continued to be involved in racketeering, real estate corruption, stock fraud, and organized car theft. Gotti's high-profile lifestyle, however, attracted relentless attention from law enforcement. Despite several arrests, he managed to escape many convictions through witness intimidation and jury corruption. Gotti's reign ended in 1992, largely due to the treachery of his underboss, Sammy the Bull Gravano. Facing personal charges, Gravano became a law enforcement agent, providing the FBI with detailed information on the Gambino family's internal operations. Gravano's testimony led to Gotti's conviction for murder, racketeering, and other crimes. Gotti was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, dying of cancer in 2002. Gravano's decision to cooperate with authorities marked a turning point in the mafia's code of silence, known as omerta. Over the years, the Gambino family has been linked to numerous high-profile crimes, including the Lufthansa robbery, 1978. Although associated with the Lucchese family, Gambino family members provided logistical support for this famous JFK airport robbery, which netted over $5 million in cash and $875,000 in jewelry. Union infiltration. The Gambinos exercise control over unions such as the Teamsters and the International Longshoremen's Association, using them to extort businesses and siphon off funds. Construction industry monopoly. Through the Concrete Club, the family rigged bids for major construction projects, including skyscrapers in Manhattan, ensuring a share of the profits. Intelligence wiretaps from Castellano's home revealed shocking details about the family's operations, including extortion schemes and illicit business dealings. Let's now look at some curious and lesser-known details about the history of this family. The first curiosity concerns Carlo Gambino's humility. Unlike many mafia bosses, Gambino lived modestly, avoiding ostentatious displays of wealth to stay under the radar. The second curiosity concerns the FBI's pizza connection. The family's involvement in heroin trafficking was discovered through a complex network of pizza shops used as fronts. Another interesting fact concerns John Gotti's public persona. Gotti's charisma made him a folk hero to some, with fans gathering outside the courthouse during his trials. And again, Paul Castellano's obsession with technology. Castellano installed a state-of-the-art security system in his home, unaware that it would not protect him from betrayal. Today, the Gambino family is a shadow of its former self. Decades of trials, internal betrayals, and changing social dynamics have weakened their influence. However, they remain active in smaller-scale operations, adapting to the modern landscape of organized crime. Recent reports suggest the family has moved into cybercrime, identity theft, and online scams, leveraging technology to stay relevant. Law enforcement continues to monitor their activities, but the days of high-profile bosses like Carlo Gambino and John Gotti are long gone. The history of the Gambino Mafia family is one of ambition, power, and betrayal. From their rise as one of New York's 5 families to their gradual decline, their story offers a fascinating glimpse into the world of organized crime. The Gambino Mafia family has never severed its red thread with the Palermo clans. In fact, there is so much Sicily in the clan that, according to many, it was the founder Charles Gambino, who died in 1976, and whose funeral was attended by politicians, judges, and businessmen who inspired the character of Vito Corleone, played masterfully by Marlon Brando in Mario Puzo's The Godfather. Don Carlo arrived from Palermo to New York in 1921 and settled in Brooklyn. This is where the New York history of the clan begins. The last boss of a certain caliber was John Gotti, who died in the medical center of the federal prison in Springfield. He was the last boss and perhaps also the man who led to the decline of the Gambino family, for decades the most important of the 5 that divided up New York. The Gambinos were also very active in drugs, as emerged in the Pizza Connection investigation of 1979. Morphine from Turkey arrived in Palermo, where drug refineries transformed it into heroin ready to be sold in New York. A mountain of money laundered in Switzerland, and also thanks to the good offices of Caruana and Contreras. Charles Gambino became the boss at the end of the 1950s, and under his leadership, the family achieved enormous power and criminal extension. An octopus. At the beginning of the 1960s, the organization could count on 2,500 affiliates and a turnover of hundreds of millions a year, with interests in Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, Las Vegas, and even Cuba. And then there are the links with the Scapati, Totuccio Inzerillo's men who fled to America to escape the hunt of Toto Riina's Corleonesi. And it was thanks to the Gambinos that Inzerillo hoped to regain power in Palermo. In Pizza Connection, the investigation conducted by the great judge Giovanni Falcone, elements of contact emerged between the Inzerillos and the Gambinos on the large-scale heroin trafficking, and also on the kidnapping of the bankrupt P2 member Michele Sindona. And even when the Sicilian Mafia decided to rediscover drug trafficking, it was through some heirs of the Inzerillos and the Gambinos. But in the Palermo Cosa Nostra, not everyone was in agreement with the Inzerillos' return. There were those who feared their plans for revenge, and those who instead looked favorably on them. Don Carlo was never arrested in the 20 years he was the boss. In 1972, at the height of his power, the feds intercepted a mafia meeting held at his home on Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn. You could hear his questions, but never his answers. The old boss, instead of speaking, responded by nodding or writing notes. Italian and U.S. law enforcement agencies have worked on several mafia families, and many investigations have been coordinated by the Palermo District Anti-Mafia Directorate. Specialized agents with canine units, flight units, and special agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation have operated on our country's territory as observers. 7 arrests were carried out in Sicily, while 10 restrictive measures were carried out in New York. The investigation also revolved around Francesco Rappa, known as Ciccio, the historic mafia boss of Borghetto, definitively convicted 3 times for mafia association. Since the 1970s, Rappa had been organically involved in the colossal drug trafficking of Cosa Nostra between Sicily and the USA, and was arrested in the United States after being found with 81 kilos of heroin hidden in the car he had used to disembark from the ship that had brought him to New York. Released after 3 convictions, Rappa resumed his influential position in the clan by repositioning himself at the top of the Borghetto Mafia family and continuing to maintain relationships with Mafia exponents such as the Gambinos of New York, where his son Gabriele lives, considered by the US authorities to be affiliated with the criminal Mafia gang from overseas. It is thanks to his son that Rappa has continued to play the prosecutor's right, the role of privileged and authoritative interlocutor of the affiliates of the Mafia Association active in the USA, thus perpetuating its very delicate function. The story of the Gambino family is a gripping journey through decades of crime, power, and betrayal. From its beginnings with Carlo Gambino to the fall of John Gotti, their name remains synonymous with the American Mafia. If you enjoyed this insight, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other content on the world of crime and its mysterious stories. See you soon.